The countdown continues as America waits to hand over the sovereignty of the Iraqi government to Iraq. The Bush administration is holding to its June 30th deadline, even though safety and stability remain the greatest obstacles to the turnover. I guess the most pressing question of all is, if the elections were held today, who would win, what would their political sympathies be, and how would American interests fit into that equation? To help answer that question, I've engaged members of a high-level political think tank to mull over the different outcomes and permutations of an Iraqi election should it happen. They spent days coming up with a cogent response, and I have their results. In fact, I'll play them for you. The folks at the think tank have actually gone ahead and simulated election day coverage in Baghdad. It's quite fascinating, and I think well thought out as to what will happen at the end of June. So let's listen. It's just an excerpt of about 10 minutes or so from the Horvath Institute in Washington, D.C. Here is a simulated account of the 2004 Baghdad Democratic elections. Let's roll that, please.
Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone to a very exciting day indeed. The very first Baghdad elections since the fall of Saddam Hussein. You can just feel the anticipation in the air, the unrest of the crowds, the nervousness of the participants themselves. Several seats in the first Iraqi National Congress are being contested today. Some very tight races between the hardline Shiite Shadow Party, the midline Sunni Sunshine Party, and the new American-backed Texas Turban Party. A lot of candidates very happy to be here, very lucky to be here. This was not an easy campaign. A political race such as this may be measured not only in winners and losers, but in exiles and casualties. So it will be very interesting to see what happens to whom on this historic occasion, on the steps and in the halls of the Baghdad Parliament. I'm Nigel Wilson, reporting for the BBC by special arrangement with Al Jazeera Television. Joining me in the booth is commentator Jack Fetterman from the United States. Welcome, Jack. What do you think of the matchup so far?
Pleasure to be here, Nigel. I say this is shaping up to be a test of the American resolve to bring democracy to this backward nation. For every forward-thinking Texas turbanite hand-selected by the Bush administration, there's a Muslim extremist just waiting to take his chair and possibly his head.
Do the Americans have a chance?
Oh, no question, Nigel. If they can neutralize the fringe and go straight up the center, coordinating their military defense in strategic blitz patterns, I think we could see a big day for the red, white, and blue.
Anything to watch out for?
The Yankees have to mind their Achilles heel. They see the big picture while ignoring the edges of the frame. You get the picture home, rather. Try to hang on the wall, and that's when you notice the termites have eaten it to bits.
That's quite a metaphor, Jack.
Don't patronize me, Nigel.
All right, well, no time for light banter. We have our first contest of the day. It's for Deputy Minister of Transportation, a very important position. The fellow who wins this seat will be expected to get buses, rails, and the Baghdad airport up to snuff, not just for military personnel, but for commercial and tourist business as well.
What was this said about Mussolini? He may have been a bad guy, but at least he made the trains run on time.
Which will be an Herculean task in Iraq, considering the current state of affairs. And although these elections are for 4-year terms, he may get only a few months to implement these changes.
Yes, absolutely. Any of these guys getting elected today, if they don't show improvement or at least stability in 6 to 8 months, we'll be seeing them on internet videos choking on their own intestines.
Is that your prediction?
I give 3 to 1 odds that half these guys won't make it to Christmas.
Well, tough words there from Jack. I hope you're wrong. I hope the multinational force remaining in place after the turnover really scrambles in there and makes sure everyone's a good sport. Well, here comes the first candidate for the Deputy Minister position. It looks like, yes, it's Mohammed Isbar from the Centrist Sunshine Party. He's halfway up the steps to the Parliament, turning around, waving to the cameras. He would wave to the crowd, only, of course, there are no crowds, as they've been moved half a kilometre away for safety reasons. Isbar stops waving, turns and begins walking up the top steps, where he will presumably go inside and cast a ballot for himself as well as other members of the Sunni party. And, "Oh my God! He's been shot! A shot has rung out! He's grabbing his chest and stumbling backwards. Jack, did you see where the shot came from?"
Well, Nigel, it sounds like it came from the left, over by that abandoned mosque you can see there, but this is a very echoey town. That makes it extremely difficult to pinpoint where bullets are originating from.
Well, they've certainly hit their mark. There's an awful lot of blood. Very quickly, it's pandemonium here.
I will say this. Whoever is responsible has damn fine aim. It's an extremely bright, hot day, which may have put some glare in the killer's eyes.
There are also American MPs and CIA stationed at almost every step, so it was a gutsy yet surprisingly successful gambit by a would-be assassin.
Well, more than a would-be assassin, Nigel. Muhammad Isfar has officially been pronounced dead. He's been carried off the steps of Parliament on a stretcher. Never nice to see that, Nigel.
No, but it's always a possibility. I interviewed Muhammad Isfar last week and I asked him, was he scared? And he said, you're always aware of danger, but you can't let that deter you. You have to go out there and give it your best shot. Unfortunately for him, the best shot belonged to an unidentified marksman.
It's the nature of the sport, Nigel. 1 minute you're waving and giving that victory sign. The next minute you're flopping around faster than an epileptic on the tilt-a-whirl.
And just as fast, here comes another plucky candidate. This is the American 58-year-old Horace Berzinger. And he's a veteran. You can see it in his face, in his purposeful stride up the Parliament steps.
Yes, he's going to need that bravery. It's clear that hardliners are playing for keeps. But Berzinger has 20 years in the U.S. Department of Transportation, so he may just have the experience to see this thing through, Nigel.
Well, I'm tempted to agree with you, Jack, except he's just been shot. Apparently from the same direction as the previous shooting. Armored cars and helicopters are swarming in that direction as we speak. The American's body is being carted off to the rear of the building and... Oh my God!
Is that?
Yes, it absolutely is. It's Mustafa Kemal making a surprise run up the side entrance. He's made it through the doors and into the House of Parliament. That's going to make it very difficult to get him out.
That's an understatement, Nigel. Karmouli has made, or Karmouli rather, I can't read, so many voices in the head tonight. He's been linked to several terrorist incidents in Saudi Arabia and has the backing of numerous extremist factions around the globe. He is a real team player.
Well, it remains to be seen whether the moderates can overcome this big score for the Shiites. Back to the elections, though. Approaching from the right is a diplomatic limousine. The windows are tinted, so it's rather difficult to make out his...
I believe those are the vice-chancellors.
Yes, that's right. Well spotted, Jack. There are 3 different Americans running for Vice-Chancellor on the Texas Turbine line. One is from Halliburton, one is from General Electric, and the third is kind of a renegade, wouldn't you say, Jack?
Yeah, he is definitely his own man. 28 years old he is, had been working at a factory in Michigan that closed down 3 years ago. Hasn't been able to find work in the States, so he's been doing independent contracting in Iraq. He's made some good money, apparently. But winning this would really put him in the big leagues.
Except that's not going to happen for him or for any of the contenders. Their car has just been firebombed by a surface-to-air missile. I can't tell if all 3 are casualties, but by the limbs flying every which way, no one in that car is going to be in any condition to help run a new government, that's for sure. My goodness, it's certainly been an action-packed morning.
Yes, and you know that tomorrow there'll be all this Monday morning quarterbacking back home. Why wasn't the area secured? Why are there still car bombs and deadly weapons this late in the game? Why aren't the Iraqis doing more to protect themselves? It's always so easy to ask those questions after the fact. After you've got 100 dead soldiers to ship home. I just wish some of these people asking hard questions would also appreciate, Nigel, the hard results.
You mean the elections themselves?
Yes, absolutely. Iraq is having its first free and open democratic elections ever. So there are bound to be some flaws, some bumps along the way, some hanging chads, as it were. I passed a McDonald's on the way to the studio today, and looking at those golden arches and the Arabian sun, I said to myself, Jack, one day those naysayers and negative Nellies are going to realize, like it or not, the Hussein days are over. It's a whole different ballgame now in Iraq.
And an explosive one. 5 simultaneous car bombs just went off in the parking lot of the assembly. There were no fatalities, but the senior minister of education apparently has no sensation in the left side of his body.
Well, I guess he's all right now.
Jolly good.
Don't patronize me.
Sorry. All right, I think we're on to the next political race. It's for mayor of Najaf, which sounds like something of a figurehead position, but actually entails a lot of delicate mediation between the left and right factions.
Yeah, the job requires someone of skill and tact and quite a bit of courage, actually. In the months leading up to this election, the top candidate appeared to be Al-Fatah Muhammad. He is a somewhat moderate career politician from the Shadow Party, running under the very popular slogan, Shiite or get off the pot.
And we're just waiting for the first candidate to make his presence known. All's quiet on the steps at the moment. So far, the Sunni Sunshine Party is a no-show, and nothing from the Americans.
Someone's just tossed an American flag onto the steps and...
Yes, and just as that happened, it has been riddled with machine gun fire. So I think we know where the sympathies are in this particular race.
If only you can hear it. And you know what? And this bears it out. Ahmad Sahmoud is running up the steps. He's from the ultra-extremist pro-9/11 party.
He's carrying something in his left hand. Can you make out what...
That's a head, Nigel.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes, it's the head of the Labour Party, Habibi Memzali. He's carrying it under his arm, rather triumphantly, making his way through the revolving door. Oh, he's dropped it! It's rolling out the door down the steps!
That's a bad fumble, Nigel. That'll cost the Shiites.
Piling onto the head of 4 private guards hired by Lockheed Martin. They're scrambling with it. They're hoping to hand it off to another American, but no! A band of extremists from Tajikistan have jumped out of the bushes and are now hacking the guards to death, samurai style.
This is no laughing matter, Nigel.
No, it's not.
We apologize. We're being tickled by feathers back
It's
here.
so exciting, you know?
We're being tickled, but it's a modified samurai style, Nigel, since, of course, these are not Asians. And certainly the Japanese way, exemplified by its harakiri ceremony, is more clean and methodical. The interns are hitting us with feathers, I'm sorry. This is just sawing away like chopping down a redwood with a nail file.
Another fine metaphor, Jack.
Do not patronize me, Nigel!
Well, now, these human redwoods are going down without a fight. The radicals have handed off the head to Shiite shadow left-winger Tariq Akbara, and he's moving easily up the stairs, through the doors. No question, he will be Iraq's next Minister of Culture. Well, it seems officials have called a timeout, or as they term it, ceasefire, so we'll break here for a moment. You're watching election results on BBC Al Jazeera Link Up, live from Baghdad, Iraq. I'm Nigel Wilson.
And I'm Jack Fetterman.
Much more action to come. Don't go away.